There are levels to this game, and oh, they are so very clear. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Zekko football channel. Newcastle have beaten Manchester United by 3-0 with their second team, and that is something that we need to talk about. If you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications. It really helps me out and it's very much appreciated. But now, let's get into it. You have two rowers. Bear with me. One rower decides to pick up 2 oars and take it with him onto the boat in the river, and he's powering on ahead. The other rower takes the 2 oars, throws one of them in the river, and just paddles on one side. In the end, the one rower makes it to the finish line. The other rower just keeps going around in a circle. Can you guess which club represents which rower? Manchester United and Newcastle could not be further apart from each other in the way that the clubs are set up, in the contrast in which they play football, and the ideals and philosophy that they are trying to instill on the pitch. It was night and day. It was men versus boys, and honestly, when I tell you that Newcastle should have won by more, please believe me. Let's begin with the attacking momentum bar. Yes, Manchester United started out okay, they had some form of possession, but Newcastle very quickly gained the momentum, and that was down to a couple of reasons which we'll get into in a moment. Manchester United came out at half-time and started to gain some kind of attacking momentum, and then Newcastle decided, oh, we shall play now, we will attempt to go forwards, and essentially score with their first attack. Like I said, it was men against boys. But one of the main things that really happened in this game early on, apart from the Matt Targett injury, which is very unfortunate for him, but it allowed Newcastle to bring on Miggy Almiron, and that meant that they had a midfield three of Joe Linton, Joe Willock and Sean Longstaff, which shored up the midfield and also allowed them to overpower Manchester United. The other thing that happened is that Hannibal Mejbri and Casemiro ended up getting yellow cards, both of them within 20 minutes, which means that Newcastle were able to bypass that United midfield, not that it's too much of a difficulty anyway, but they were able to bypass that Manchester United midfield without the worry or concern about any of the little fouls that could have been given away. And very quickly, Newcastle managed to realise that this left-hand side, particularly where Dalot and Hannibal were, was a side that they could really exploit. If I show you where Dalot was, he was getting forward continuously, so was Mejbri, but in particular, Mejbri never managed to come and track back, and this was the space that Anthony Gordon, Almiron, and the likes of Joe Willock really exploited. They penetrated down this side, and it meant that Manchester United were continuously on the back foot, and it's actually from this side that 2 of the 3 goals come from. The other one comes from the middle of the midfield, just powering through, but I thought Anthony Gordon did a very good job of being almost false 9, bringing others into play. Although he didn't have too many chances, I thought he was quite good at running the channels and again making sure that they were able to penetrate against the likes of Diogo Dalot and Hannibal over on that Manchester United right-hand side, the Newcastle left-hand side. And then we need to talk about the fact that Newcastle are playing their second team. It is incredible. Emil Krafth has not played a game of football in about 14 months. Martin Dubravka has not played a competitive game since his loan spell at Manchester United. Lewis Hall is playing his first competitive game for Newcastle. They had a back 2 of Emil Krafth and Paul Dummett. It is incredible. This is madness. Matt Ritchie also had a decent game, very defensively solid. I thought he was okay. On the right-hand side, he failed to really go forwards and bomb forwards. It was mainly through Sean Longstaff and Livramento, who was sensational, by the way. Every single Manchester United player really needs to hang their head in shame, but I thought Newcastle were absolutely sensational. And I don't want this to be a talking point about how poor Man United were, because we've been there, we've done that. Let's give Newcastle some flowers, and I thought they were really, really good. Their looking towards the left-hand side was very well done, and I think that Eddie Howe has done a good job of isolating particular scenarios. The one major scenario is really isolating Harry Maguire against the likes of either Joe Willock, Anthony Gordon or Almiron, and it was something that Newcastle just peppered United with continuously, and then they were able to drive through midfield. The actual balance of play looks like it was in Manchester United's favour, but it really wasn't. 13 total shots for United, but they only had 2 on target. 10 shots for Newcastle and 5 on target. They were more clinical. They had the better opportunities. The possession doesn't really matter when you can't do anything with it. We've said this on this channel numerous times. 2 big chances, one of them missed. Again, it should have been more. This is a critical thing for Newcastle, and they've managed to get their victory. But here is another thing that I want to mention about their defensive solidity. Manchester United had 13 shots. 4 of them, only four shots were inside the box. 4. Only 4. The rest were outside. 2 of the shots on target were actually outside of the box. They didn't manage a shot on target inside the box. And then when I show you this, it's even better. The 2 shots on target that they had were actually in the first half. It's incredible. It's absolutely mind-blowing. The defensive solidity of Newcastle United was superb. Their counter-attacks were brilliant. Their exchanges were great, and their passages of play carved through Manchester United like butter. It was a thoroughly deserved performance. It was a thoroughly deserved win, and Newcastle arguably could have scored more. They now power on through into the next round of the EFL Cup, leaving Man United in their wake. Let's have a look at some in-match moments now, because we really need to talk about this a little bit further. This is the lead-up to the first goal, and as you can see, it's actually in the Newcastle half. Alejandro Garnacho is about to be dispossessed by Tino Livramento, and what I found so impressive about Newcastle is the way they transitioned from defence to attack. But from a Man United point of view, their just over-commitment to certain scenarios without actually doing anything was horrendous. And this is where the first goal comes from. Reguilón overcommits himself. You've got Hannibal moving in one way. Casemiro is gesturing something. You've got Anthony Martial running into attempted space, I suppose, but very quickly it turns around. Mason Mount ends up being the lone central defensive midfielder. Casemiro is not running back anywhere near as quickly as possible. Diogo Dalot, we'll mention him in a moment because it's absolutely crazy, is sleeping while there are 2 Newcastle players here and here ready to pounce upon the situation that's going to unfold. And then you've got 2 Manchester United players attempting to knock off Newcastle's right back, and they failed to do it quite spectacularly. He continues his run, getting past Mason Mount and Hannibal. Hannibal is on a yellow card at this point, so that explains that. He goes up against Victor Lindelof, who ends up backing off. And what I want to mention is this run here from Anthony Gordon, who does a fantastic job of dragging Harry Maguire away from his position. Harry Maguire should be engaging with Livramento, with Lindelof at this point, but the run from Gordon makes sure that Maguire just distracts him from this particular position. And now we're going to be talking about Diogo Dalot, who, although he's looking at the play, has no idea that behind him, Miguel Almiron is currently making a blindsided run towards the box. It's a very well-worked goal, not something I'm sure Newcastle would have focused on, but the way that they managed to transition was pretty special. And then, can he find the pass? Of course he can. It's a brilliantly weighted pass into Almiron, who is currently running on the blind side of Diogo Dalot, who again doesn't seem to have seen him at all. He doesn't seem to know that he's there. It gets finished perfectly. This is the second goal, or the build-up to the second goal. When we talk about Newcastle, we think aggression, we think intensity, we think hard work, we think fight. Here is Casemiro and here is Diogo Dalot. They are nowhere near aggressive enough when the player in Almiron is just literally standing there with the ball. He is waiting for Joe Willock to be making this run. It couldn't be more telegraphed if they tried. Almiron plays that ball through, and Newcastle are in yet again. Diogo Dalot is again on recovery duty. The ball gets crossed in, and what that means is that the centre-backs need to be doing their job. Harry Maguire does not get anywhere near enough on the header to be clearing that, and it means it falls to Lewis Hall, who completes, I might add, a sensational volley to make it 2-0 to Newcastle. Brilliantly taken, and it means it's 2-0. This is the third goal, and this is arguably the worst of the lot for Manchester United, and arguably the best one that Newcastle have scored, because this encapsulates everything that Newcastle is about. Now, remember when I talked about intensity? Remember when I talked about heart, drive, desire? Here is Joe Linton, here is Sean Longstaff, and here is Joe Willock. Remember when we looked at that Manchester United midfield when they were going forwards for that first goal? They were all almost away from each other. They were separated. Newcastle's midfield, you could wrap a blanket around them, and that's because they have enough energy to run around the pitch together. They close down Amrabat here because of a great challenge from Joe Linton, and then they're on the break. It's one singular moment that really just stops Manchester United in their tracks, and all of a sudden, you've almost got a 4v4. It's incredible. The lack of defensive awareness from Manchester United, it can't be worked on. They can't be training it, because Newcastle just exploited it time after time again. And then there's one more moment, apart from the brilliant finish from Joe Willock, that I want to mention, and it's this right here. Now, I don't know if he means it, but if he does, I think he's a genius. Eddie Howe might have done it, but what ends up happening is that Harry Maguire notices that Joe Willock is currently running on towards goal. His path should be taking him something like that. Harry Maguire decides that he's going to stop Joe Willock, but Anthony Gordon sees this as well, and what ends up happening is that he blocks Harry Maguire in a genius move. Honestly, it is absolutely fantastic. But he blocks him. Look here. He blocks him from being able to contest Joe Willock. Lindelof has already made his recovery run back. He's overcommitted. He's gone too far. And Harry Maguire was about to go and try to stop Joe Willock from driving on. But Anthony Gordon just runs into Harry Maguire. Now, I don't know if he means it, but if he does, it's a fantastic move, because what it does is it opens up the channel for Joe Willock. Brilliant piece of team play, brilliant piece of work, and it's finished off perfectly by Joe Willock, who, I might add, is again making his first start since injury. This was a fantastic game by Newcastle, and they deserve to win, and they deserve to score more, in my opinion. It was a completely different class. It wasn't a competitive game, if I'm completely honest with you. It was not a competitive game. Newcastle thoroughly deserved this victory. But my question to you is, how far do you think Newcastle can go in the EFL Cup? And how impressed were you with the goals that they scored and the performance they put in against this, albeit poor, Manchester United side? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. And I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care.